Hey, I think I have allergies, and so my neighbors have given me all sorts of allergy pills, and probably this is not the best time to make this video. But since I'm in a state of consciousness, I think I should make the video now. Some of the things that I run across in science corroborates what happened in history. A lot of the metaphysical is clearly explained in history. It is rather unfortunate what happened to Africa because a lot of knowledge was destroyed. We're not talking about thousands of years ago. We're talking about even today. Supremacy has a lot to do with destroying knowledge to pretend that you are superior. I'm not really going to get into that. What I'm going to get into is a metaphysical explanation of what man can do, and in my research into technology, scientific technology is revealing the truth behind the metaphysical goings-ons of what people believed thousands upon thousands of years ago, as documented all throughout Africa, and including the mysteries of Egypt, with which they withheld from foreigners because foreigners are foreigners. So they call it mysteries. And the mysteries are the basis of all religion on the planet today. So the mysteries, of course, were more scientific in nature, and they explained a lot of metaphysical things in scientific sort of notation, and they called it the mysteries. Now let me explain to you or reveal to you something that you may or may not know. All across Africa, from North Africa all the way down to south to the southern tip of Africa, humans were superior then. Oh, I'm not talking about light bulbs and stuff like that. The actual humans of Africa were superior, which they then brought to China and Japan, making the humans superior. What am I talking about? We're talking about memories that would make all of your schoolwork pale in comparison. Can you imagine what kind of geniuses your children would appear to be if they had 1/10 of the skills of the Africans or the humans from way gone by? They had to memorize all of the mysteries in Egypt and Sudan and Ethiopia. Well, it wasn't Ethiopia, it was Egypt. The Cushites, every one of them, all of them, they had to be superior. And in the southern tip of Africa, you understood that they too were superior. They had to memorize things at hand and be able to recall it word for word, verbatim. So one of the things that I've been, not one, but I'm going to talk about today in the scientific things. Today, one of the channels here on YouTube described exactly what I've been researching or coming across in my research. And what is that? Teleportation, mental telepathy, telekinesis is now all available in science. How would you like to have a perfect one? Do you know that if you're a low-level worker or even a high-level worker, if you had perfect retention, perfect memory, you probably could elevate yourself, tenfold as what you could possibly make. Because then also you will remember all of the financial teachings you've been told. You can get presentations just off of the top of your head, like I do. Well, what I do is I research for about a week, then I make a video. But when I make the video, a lot of times, now it's more though, 4 out of 5 times I write a script. And I hate not writing a script because I go off into tangents. But can you imagine if you were able to memorize everything you possibly heard and come across as if you understood it? Those are the superior human beings of yesteryear, of days gone by, of ancient history. Now, in the southern tip of Africa, it meant your death if you got even a word incorrect. So understanding that Africans worshiping their leaders as gods, what the Europeans could never achieve, but for whatever reason, and I don't understand it myself, they worshipped their leaders as gods. Now I'm assuming, they have to explain why their leader is a god, but probably the leader was a god the same sort of way that it happened in Europe. You had a battle, and the MVP of the battle, either depending on how old your civilization is, your culture is, he might be hailed as a god and made king. If it's an old culture, he might be hailed no more than what a lord would be in European medieval parlance, lingo. Scientists are now explaining or understanding, and then they're taking the explanation and then taking it to its extreme. Let me give you a few examples. Telepathy. They're talking about human to computer interface. You got that? So humans are being able to interface with computers. That means that the human is able to convey thoughts that the computer can take, right? Understand, and therefore visualize. So when I said in my other video that they are able to read your mind, it's the human-computer interface. Taking to the extreme, then if we can do that, and all it is aligning your brain to speak in a certain, let's say, a frequency that the computer can read on that frequency. This is a saying that is actually true from human to human. They've already done this to have a human pick up, and they've done extensive. I just saw like a 2-3 hour documentary where they actually did this, and they did this on the documentary, where the people, what was it, one of the old CIA supernatural employees came and did the same thing on camera. What did they do? They had first they talked about twins, and they tried to research, do twins actually have telepathy with each other? Well, when they conducted that test, the twins not only had some sort of telepathy, but when given a questionnaire that you had to write out in long form, not pick and choose, they got the answers. What answers they did get wrong had the same exact lingo, language, and the way that they failed those particular questions. Now, when referring back to the researcher who had conducted the questionnaire, she said, not only do I see, some sort of hint of maybe sharing telepathy, but that could be explained by environment. Twins who live together are more than likely going to have all or most, if not all, experiences. So they're going to think a certain way all the time together. So she explained that. She says, however, that being said, when you get a question wrong and you answer it in the same exact way, she said, had this been any other classroom, she would have kept all of the twins after to determine if they had not been cheating on each other, because that's how close the error was to each other. And that's not explaining any sort of environmental nurturing. They said nurture versus, what is it? Nature versus nurture. Nurture being how you're brought up, nature being how you act instinctually. If I'm getting that wrong, please tell me below. Then they moved away from twins. Then they started testing people who were self-proclaimed clairvoyants. And since I love to teach, let's take a break and teach you something. Clairvoyance, voyar, that means sight. Clair means far. Clairvoyance means that you can see things from afar. Clairaudience means you can hear things from afar. Omnipotent means all powerful. Potence, power. Omnipresent means you are all at all places at once. Omniscient means you are all knowing. You know all things that everybody on the planet knows in the human experience. So you know everything that any human has ever thought or will think. Omniscient, all knowing. Okay, so clairvoyance, seeing from afar, seeing at a distance. They got the CIA guy who not just proclaimed that he was a medium or a psychic, but that he had worked for the US government to such a degree that he was a psychic for the government. Now, my first encounter with this guy was several years ago, and he was actually trying to teach people this particular trick. What's the premise if you are able to teach somebody psychic powers? The premise is that all humans are capable of this. They just don't know it. So in his books and his studies and study guides and all that sort of stuff, he is telling you to tap into this resource that you have at your disposal already. And of course, so the psychic guy described what he was seeing with a particular person, where she was, what was around her. So then they took him to the girl, and lo and behold, not only did he see where she was, he saw from the time she was driving to reach to that point, and he described everything on the way, the tunnels, everything. Now, in another scientific thing, they're saying if you can do the telekinesis, if you can reach from a distance and manipulate some sort of robotic being. Now, this is something that they're claiming that they're going to put into all of the gadgets going forward. So if you have the robots, it will already be implanted into the robot for you to telekinetically, that's manipulate from afar with your brain, so you can from afar pick up a glass. So supposedly these instruction or this frequency would be in all the robots going forward, that humans will be able to control the robots, drones, and what have you from now on forward with just their brain. And then, of course, they started carrying it to its ultimate conclusion. If you have telepathic, this is knowing from a distance, but this is knowing on a completely different level. Knowledge and intelligence based. Do you know intelligence is nothing more than a measure of how well you can memorize things? So do not be so consumed with being intelligent or not being intelligent. It drops all the way back to the superior human. Memory, telepathic, being able to control all the objects around you in your house, flipping on light switches with your brain, just by a thought. Now, in the prosthetics, telepathically manipulating the arms and legs, and not to burst anybody's bubble, but the men, the most preeminent specimen, I'm sure this is what I should be calling him, specimen, who is outfitted with a telepathic arm, is the only one who can also telepathically manipulate the fingers on the artificial arm. The only one, I believe, in the world. And when I say manipulate the fingers, I mean down to the finger with the other fingers not even moving. Okay, so the other documentary that I was talking about, where they were talking about the logical conclusion of all of this, is that they want to build, and this is why I keep saying I got a warning for you, that they're going to build a human network of telepaths worldwide. Technology will be such that we will be integrated into the technology, and you're going to have a communistic world of human resources, of you using all of the humans on the planet together. So this is the future. So imagine a network of every human on the planet. Now that sounds fantastic, but in reality, here's the warning. If everybody is connected, or I'm sorry, if people are connected to this massive network, what happens to the people who are not connected? More than likely, they're going to say, you cannot participate in this worldwide society. So there's the warning. And I believe they're inserting things into people. And of course, I immediately jumped to the conclusion that, of course, they are also, probably without the knowledge of the specimen, that they're implanting chips into these people. So if they can't get you to voluntarily add a chip or forcefully have a chip on your driver's license, which is now required, then they're going to try and sort of lull you into this thing by saying, be a part of the worldwide network of computers. It's always the premise and the execution that diverge. It sounds fantastic, but in the event, that it does become a worldwide network, it won't be anything for them to shut off their bank accounts, or the government say, you owe us this much and we're going to take it out of your account, whether you like it or not, because you consented to be a part of this worldwide robotic network. But let's backtrack and talk about what's the extreme. Actually, it's not backing up, it's going forward. The extreme of this is that with your brain, you'll be so able to use robotics and such, or communicate with humans, that they said with a thought you can teleport to a different planet in the universe. Why? Because it will become open to you. Remember, I keep mentioning the perfect human from the ancient Africans? Reality will start to break. Now, that was a part of the script I was making for the telepathy for China. You can learn Chinese in a few seconds or a few minutes. Reality. What is reality? So I'll give you my thoughts using that script that I'm writing. What is reality? Reality is everything that you perceive. Why are people offended today? Because in their reality, a lot of simple language is an insult to them, and they believe that they have a right to be offended, and they further believe, and here's where the realities clashes. They further believe that you have a right to be ashamed because they are offended, when everybody surrounding them is trying to tell them that's not the reality. The reality is you being offended is not reality. It's not a part of anything the rest of the society even recognizes. Definitely not to the point where somebody should be offended. Reality is everything that you make it. Your school teacher was trying to prepare, or he was supposed to prepare you for the quote unquote real world as an adult. Are you going to be able to present some sort of skill in all of the subjects that you learn in school that will be marketable, make you money, marketable? So he's supposed to instill in you knowledge, i.e. intelligence, so that the real world becomes your reality. As a kid, your reality is very much different from your father's reality, because your reality is being a kid. That's it. What your parents worry about, what your parents go through, that is their reality. And although you're under the same exact roof, you might not understand any of that. In fact, if you were put to question it as a kid, you wouldn't even know that whatever your parents are going through. You might not even be aware of it. Why? Because your reality is being a kid. So they're saying you can teleport to a different planet because you can make that your reality with a thought. This comes after years of telepathy, telekinesis, clairaudience, clairvoyance, clairsentient, that's another word. That means feeling from afar. Clairsentient, sentir means to feel. And when I say feel, I don't mean the woman way of feel. I'm talking about feel as in you can feel the rocks, you can feel the cold air in winter, you can feel the leaves falling on the person that you're looking at. You can feel the surroundings. Not feel mad, not feel sad. Feel what is around the person. Your daughter's in a dark place. I can feel ropes binding her arms behind her back. That's clairsentience. Clairaudience is I can hear the man saying they better give me the money or else. That's clairaudience. Clairvoyant is your girl is sitting in a basement with one light bulb and there's a man standing over her and she has her arms bound behind her back and she has a white rope binding her arms. Oh, and she's at 23 Elm Street. That's clairvoyant. So they're saying they can deliver through robotics and humans. Wait, there's already a scientific name for that. Biorobotics. That is the human robot or the robot with human parts in it or the robot that is human-like most as possible, right? So the ancients in Africa teaches that through our brain, we should be able to teleport from here to their planets. You've heard of the Dogon people, right? I believe that's the people. They say they come from stars, and they wrote out a completely planetary map of the Milky Way galaxy, pinpointing the exact location in the universe of where they actually are. The Dogon people, a tiny tribe. This is more than what NASA can do today. They can recognize this, but they could never map it out themselves. Nobody at NASA can map anything out in the heavens by themselves. They'd have to go to the computer. Okay, computer, we put all of this stuff into it. Show us what the Dogon people are talking about. Boom. So the people in Africa are showing them planetary systems. And they said, this is where humans come from. We don't come from this planet. We come from a different system altogether. Perfect humans, ancient Africans. Let's bring up another thing. A lot of high mathematical formulas and theories are practiced in everyday Africa today. One scientist came across an African. He came across a fence. And he noticed, because of his keen eyes and noticing a similarity with an advanced maths formula in practical reality, a fence. And he says, why is this fence this way? And they said, oh, because the wind comes, the fence is made to diffuse the wind to such a degree so that it does not disturb the village. The village, not the city. It seems that the city of this African nation didn't have such things. Why? Because it's a city. It's filled with city people who don't know anything about anything. So then he said, who is this made by? And they told him, the fence is made by a guy who only makes fences. That's all he does. So he went and visited the guy who makes fences. And he says, why did you make this fence this way? He says, my father taught me this. His father taught him this. And his father taught him this. He says, what is it? He said, it is in fact a formula. but we put the formula into the practical world to be useful for regular humans on a day-to-day basis. It took Europeans centuries to arrive at that formula, and he showed him the formula. This is NASA level formula, NASA level math, astronaut level math, and he knew it. The African fence maker knew it. They knew what they did was special. His father before him, and his father before him, and his father before him knew it was special and knew exactly what they were doing when making these fences. A lot of metaphysical stuff and advanced stuff is already documented in history, but because of the supremacy thing, a lot of that stuff is being destroyed. So I ask you, if this fence maker knew he was putting together a very high, complex mathematical formula and making a fence out of it, had he been destroyed and his line been destroyed, then that would have been destroyed. It is only by sheer luck, and maybe because he lives in a remote area of Africa, first of all, that the initial scientists found him, or that historically they were so located so outside of the norm, outside of cities, outside of quote-unquote civilization, that they weren't targeted by whomever. There is a countervailing anthropological database of saying this is what existed before, and my colleagues try and destroy all of this knowledge. But it's complex, advanced knowledge passed down from generation to generation from the original humans. Science is now discovering that not only what they say is true, but they say that the possibilities are endless. And this is not the first time that I've come across this. We can teleport all through the universe. Imagine if you did build a network of human beings telepathically linked together. Now, in the video that I will show you, I've been trying to research it. It's very hard to find the thing, because Google now tries to always, at the very beginning, the first thing they want to show you is stuff that makes Google money, or that makes some other business money. So if you talk about telepathic chair, they're going to show you pictures of chairs, regular chairs, made in Asia. That's it. So then I have to get scientific keywords into Google to even have any sort of hope of not getting a bunch of marketing thrown at me in a search engine, which means that the search engine is basically useless. Here's the deal. If you can learn Chinese in 5 minutes, remember I said intelligence is memorizing information. That's all it is. It has no connotations on the way you think, what you think. It's simply the ability to memorize information. That's it. Same thing goes with the word smart. They're talking about memorizing information. That's all it is. So if they say stuff, oh, these people aren't intelligent, that has no bearing on anything. So then let's take to the extreme for a second, and I'll rehash this in the 5-minute Chinese video. If you can learn Chinese in 5 minutes, you can learn everything in a university in a few hours, right? And then the entire population would be able to become, quote unquote, smart, quote unquote, intelligent, the entire population. I want to leave you with this question. If through a chair, within a few hours, you can do the curriculum of a 4 or 5 year degree and rendering you smart, rendering you knowledgeable, imagine everybody on YouTube that leaves a comment on my channel. Imagine them all being smart or smarter than me. Everybody. What do you think would happen? What do you think would happen with the chair? What would you think would happen with the knowledge? How much would the chair cost? These are the questions I want you to think about and to give me your thought. Thank you for watching me. Please like the video. Subscribe. I'm on Twitter at Shakaama. I'm on Instagram at Shakaama. I'm on Steam at Shakaama. Well, just Shakaama on there. Thank y'all for watching.